Let's go for it. Big bang. Boom. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week of comic books with me, your friend Carlz, who is currently super cold. Um, but I don't know. Can't really complain, right? Uh, we had, not we, but here in Latin America, our brothers in Colombia just had like a huge earthquake and shit. And come on, man, doesn't that thing put you into perspective to just be kind of like thankful for being alive? That's what it does. I don't know if it puts too much in perspective, like if you need to feel guilty about doing your stuff, I'm talking about comic books or whatever, but like, shout outs to Colombians, man. Now, back to the topics. I don't know if this counts as news, but I'm really suddenly I got this rush of excitement about the Lantern series that it's premiering this upcoming Sunday. I've talked about Green Lantern, the comics front, for a long time. How much I've kind of like rekindled that love for that hero which I never really had. But I think in a kind of like morbid way, this has been enhanced by the failure of Supergirl. Certainly has. Um, like just craving for something new in the audiovisual department. I've said it plenty of times. I'm not that much excited anymore about the whole movies and all that, but there's always a little fire inside of us comic book and aficionados about those live action adaptations. It's always gonna be. That's why they won't ever die. There is this teeny tiny, sometimes bigger desire of seeing these things in live action. The thing I hope they nail is the emotion of Green Lantern. People keep forgetting, or I think they do, and that's what I think, about the whole emotional spectrum and how the Green Lantern and the whole lore behind it, it's all about emotion. Like all of it is about emotion. That's what you need to tap into. People complain they didn't have enough aliens and whatnot. And of course they didn't. It wasn't that the best trailer, the first one they could have shown. But besides the world building, besides the sci-fi and the action, Green Lantern is about emotion. It's always been, and it's the strength of the lore and the character overall. So I hope they lean into that. But we'll see. We'll have a time to talk about lanterns in the future, of course. But for now, let's go straight into this week's recommendations of comic books. So, Action Comics is sort of bringing back Superman right into the mix, into the fold. I talked a little bit about the return of Superman and how I thought it was going to be. I gotta say, it wasn't that good. He just sort of came back. That's the truth. So, despite all of the things that I've said, and I still stand by the good things DC did with Superman after KO, I think the ending was a little bit disappointing, both for the end of the reign of the Superboys and for the return of Superman himself. I think it lacked a little bit of heat, a little bit of weight. I think they might explore that in the future, but me personally, I'm like, yeah, this is Superman. He's in the end of time. Let's go back. Okay. But we dove right into, or we are diving right into the next big story arc for Superman in all of its books with the Kingdom of Zod. Basically, Zod is back. I don't remember when was the last time this version of Zod came to be, but Zod is mostly this one-sided character. He always does the same thing. I remember him having that story arc with the son, right? He had his son, and his son kind of like teamed up with Sinestro's son. It's the whole deal. And as I said, I didn't really like how Superman came back, or how the reign of the Superboys really tied up. I think it needed more impact, but they just threw us right into Sod, and well, I think that may be the nature of comics. Just keep flowing and just jump from one story for the other. But like, come on, I don't want to be overly negative or anything, but there's gonna be more fallout and further impact to whatever Superman experienced on his trip to the end of all things. So for that, I think if it was just the hook to keep you hooked, it worked. So let's see what the Kingdom of Sod is bringing. It was weird because he's like in the Kryptonite world, like country. I think it's a country. And I haven't read the Kingdom of Sod 1 or 2. I chose the Action Comics just because. But basically, you need to read the whole thing, and it's gonna be through all of the Superman books in general. So if they tell you can choose any one of them, at least they give us that nice banner up top, reminding us that it's part of a storyline. We'll see how it goes. I just wanted to mention how anticlimactic the reign of the Superboys and the return of Superman really felt. But it's a setup. Next. I've been kind of like on and off with Barbara Gordon's Breakout. I think they have drawn out the mystery for quite long time, because if we remember, this whole thing started with the whole Batman having like a plan against Vandal Savages, but now it's supposed to be leading to Bad Seeds, the next Gotham sort of mini event. And out of all of that, I kind of don't know what Barbara is doing in jail. It's been kind of odd. Now we have like little hints of reveals from her past and like mystery partners and whatever, but I'm like, wasn't she in jail for a bigger reason? Like, wasn't like a plan behind it? I don't know. I think it's been kind of mild. I was hoping for a bit more punch as well, for like having more little clues of whatever is going on behind it. But anyways, man, it's just been good fun. Not every book can be an impact. What got me thinking though when did Barbara's brother James died? For some reason I kept thinking they were gonna bring him back somehow. But it's evident that it's gonna be something related to her life, like an aunt or something. I haven't read the details, and I haven't read if it's already revealed. I don't want to spoil myself anything. But the book itself has been kind of slow. We haven't really kind of like experienced Barbara's experiences in jail, so it's been kind of warm. But apparently now in issue 4 we're gonna have a step forward. But you never fully trust these press releases. How many times did the press releases went off with Storm's daughter, right? It was like 3 weeks of it's Storm's daughter, rah, 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 rah. And in the end it was like, yeah, there she is. Okay. I keep remembering thinking, who's Storm's daughter's father? Because the press release themselves were like, oh man, like you will never believe who his dad is, who her dad is. And who is he? Whatever. Next. So, Batman and Robin Year 1, another story from the past, but man, you gotta recommend anything Chris Samney ever does. Like, look at that cover, man. It's so pretty. I love his art. Like, now, story-wise, we've recently had several stories from this era of Batman and Robin. Uh, we've seen teenage Dick. We're seeing a lot of kid Dick, and they have relied a little bit on his insecurities, both as a teenager and as a kid. Like we've seen an updated version of not the trauma, but kind of like the personality and emotional shock that it is to be Robin at that age. You know, they all been kind of like nice tidbits of content to build up even more the character of Dick Grayson that we know today as Nightwing. I really love those bits of him being a teenager and having like a date with Supergirl or something, like experiencing those things, um, and being frustrated and being more of like a vulnerable kid. We often forgot because he was the best Robin, and he's kind of like developed the most solid personality in his in adulthood. But you sort of forget that he was a kid, and you know, too long didn't read for what I'm saying. It's Chris Samney, man. He's also part of the story in this one, so you gotta love it, man. I can't stop looking at the cover. I love what Chris Samney does the Battover, is it? And he does a sketch about Batman like every day. He's a genius, man. He's got that the Goldilocks theory where you have like a planet in the exact same point where it could develop life. That is Chris Samney in for Batman. He's in the perfect area that combines some sort of innocence and cartoonish flair or enchantment, but the uses of light and dark is perfect for Batman. He has the perfect flow for some action scenes. Man, yeah, of course you can geek out about art. Duh. Batman and Robin year 1. Next. Bleeding Heart has been the best Vertigo book for me. I mean, I don't count the Nice House by the Sea because that's coming over from previous. Previously it was just DC, right? I think it was. But the new book that came out of that, like a fully new one, was Bleeding Hearts. And I don't know, it just hooked me. Then it's this camp story about a zombie kid who somehow regains his heart and starts experiencing empathy. It has been amazing. I gotta say, it's nothing beyond of amazing for me. I've loved the wordplay they have done between his human empathy or human quote unquote heart empathy and his zombie empathy. It's just an imaginary exercise that is so interesting. Like, what if zombies had empathy for each other, but they just hated humans? And they don't really hate them as like bigotry or anything, because they just see them as food, just as meat eaters think about their food. What if you had a heart and suddenly you are like, oh man, this shit I'm eating, it has feelings, like it has fear, it has love. And what would you do? Those are some interesting questions shown in beautiful art by Stepan Morian, with the grittiness and often uncomfortable display that Vertigo was known for. Bleeding Hearts is without doubt the best new series from Vertigo. It's full of heart, it's charismatic, it's fun, the art is engaging, and it's moving into like I don't know if a new story arc, but a new stage of its story as the main character who now struggles with having a heart, struggles with being an outcast from zombie society, and spoiler, having betrayed his apparently best friend. That shit was. I don't like spoiling too much, but I gotta say, like that moment where his best friend see him as food because he had a heart, that shit was so good. They during the whole book they have played with his heartbeat, and it's like dum dum, and his zombie friend just hear that shit like dum dum, and like you are food and I'm gonna kill you. That shit was so impactful. It was so radical. Like man, he just has a heart, man. What does it really mean to betray bonds of friendship and feelings just for a sound of a beating heart? Man, great comics. Bleeding Hearts. Was it even nominated to anything? I don't know, man. I think people have such high standards. This shit is great. Next. We go to another Star Wars runabout with the fall of Kylo Ren. How many Kylo Ren books have they released by now? By God. The funny thing about the Kylo Ren books they all released, to me, is like they sort of go in a roundabout for the same thing we already saw in the movies. They haven't really added anything to the bare bones structure of what we saw of the character in the movies, right? He was kind of like not the chosen one, but he was like, okay, Princess Leia and Han Solo's son. He was the chosen one, and Luke saw this. What he saw like a vision, right? That he was gonna be corrupted, betrayed. He ends up actually being kind of like corrupted. Blah blah blah. I said long time ago how the best part of the Darth Vader books was that they allowed us to dive deep into the whole process, like the mental and emotional process of being Darth Vader. During those books, we could see how Vader's struggles survived from episode 3 all the way to his coming back to the light in episode 6. You know, movie wise, we didn't see that. You know, they were like, oh, at the end, when in Return of the Jedi, where Luke goes like, oh, I see the good in him and he believes in him. We just see that just as a state of a fact. But the books gave us the chance to empathize with Vader's struggle. It crafted a character in which we could see an ongoing struggle. We could see the weight of all of his choices. In a way, we learned that Vader is not that there was good in him, in a fortuitous way. That's a hard word to say. We learned that he was always fighting against his light. We saw him as that. But the books of Kylo, I don't think they have reached that, because we saw it in the movie. We already saw it in the movie. I don't think they have added anything else to give the character any texture. It feels like they are just kind of like repackaging what we already know. You know? They ain't bad. But like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. They lack the impact that the Vader books has, which is kind of ironic, since that was kind of like the whole character's deal in the movies. But anyways, you might wonder why you're recommending them, because it's Star Wars. And you never know what you might get. You know? You never know. The whole Charles Soule saga of Star Wars book and comic books creating and stories, to me, honestly, has been rather mid. You know? I think my main issue with it is that the extra layers of Star Wars that I wish they would be added between what we already know in the movies, maybe they should go a different way, or maybe they should, I don't know, give you something more rich in the character department. But they just feel like reiterative of what we already know. Next. There's a new number one for Gargoyles, led by the show's original creators or writers. And I was never that much of a big of a fan of the Gargoyles. I remember owning one, and I remember talking about the Gargoyles books before. And they seem so generic. I'm recommending this mostly out of curiosity. Did the Gargoyles deserve any like another number one? I think they have relied too much on world building in the couple of Gargoyles books that I've read, going back to the past and the whole curse and magic and druids. But it's really lacking something. The best Gargoyle story arc we had in the comic books was the one where Goliath surrendered himself to the court and he was being judged. I think that was the best story arc because it was interesting and different. But besides that, I don't know. It's just so blah. Will this change anything? I don't know. And me not being the biggest fan of the Gargoyles, is this really impactful for me in a way? I don't think so. But I'm awfully curious of, especially Dynamite, keeping these Disney IPs alive. I think that is the most important thing to me. When people go like, "Oh, you remember the Gargoyles back in the late '90s and shit," and I'm like, "Yeah, they're still alive." I think in a way, this is what keeps me going back to these books. Just the feeling of keeping these franchises, these characters, and these stories alive, even if they are not that good. But I've said it before, in comics, every number one, every anniversary, annual is a chance for a fresh start. And that is one of the beauties and best things about comics books in that way. It's a world that just keep rolling, and anything can be a surprise. Just don't be too excited about it, I guess. Or like keep a measured expectation for it. Next. This is my book of the week because it just looks hella interesting. Gastronomique by Margaret Bennett and Helena Maselis by Boom Studios. Apparently, it's a thriller type story of this lady detective like chasing for a cannibal. It has a vibe of like Silence of the Lambs in old-timey Silence of the Lambs. Um, I'm not. I was thinking about Margaret Bennett, and even though she's a known name, I it's not the one that I can just like mention straight up. I remember the Evolution books and the Animosity books, but that's mostly it. But for some reason, this plot or this general description just made a lot of sense to me. But I kept going back to Animosity. Animosity it's a great book. Now that I talked about animals, that for bleeding hearts, it just made a lot of sense. That story of animal revolution. But I don't know. Basically, the I got into that idea that Silence of the Lambs in old-timey comic book version. I've said it before. Sometimes I just get attracted by just like a teeny tiny concept or anything, and that's the case for Gastronomique. That's it. Silence of the Lambs in old-timey. It feels like a week to like give my book of the week to something that I just got hooked on by just one example, you know. But the press release promises a lot of um, excitement. They keep using body horror nowadays for describing a lot of shit. So I get here on my nose that they use the word body horror. Body horror, huh? That's something I like too. So thrillers, body horror, uh, you know, what else do I need? Though sometimes when I read that, I'm like, man, maybe this should have been a movie. But whatever. Gastronomique by Boom Studios. My book of the week with little description from me. I sometimes I'm a really hard sell, and sometimes I'm a really easy sell. It's like, oh, here's a book. It's like Silence of the Lambs in the past. It has a lot of body horror and a lot of commentary. What was the term they used? Like sexual commentary. And I'm like, man, a thriller? Let's go. Next. Generation X23 has been kind of like meh book. I felt like they were diving again into similar tropes that they have done with both X23 and mostly X23 a lot. And, you know, the whole other like kid experiments they did, they all felt like, yeah, they're doing the same as X23 and what she did. And the big baddie was one of those kids who shows the path of evil, if you want to call it like that. But Big Daddy is coming home, Wolverine, who is not in his best days, if you can call him. The Wolverine solo book is dealing with his lack of healing factor and his broken claws, which I really don't know why they haven't regenerated. Like, he lost the claw. I mean, he doesn't have adamantium in it, right? But when that happened, I thought the bone claws would regenerate, so he would always have claws. But they keep showing him with like broken claws, like he can't regenerate them. But anyways, as I've said plenty of times before, I'm a sucker for family stories, and one of those ongoing family dynamics, which is really interesting, and every time it picks out of comics, is the relationship of fatherhood, daughterhood, but the relationship between Laura and Logan as like strained or like chosen father-daughter type. So bringing Logan is gonna be great because, as I said, most of these experimental kits, the other weapons, they have felt generic. They haven't really contrasted with Laura and what was the name of the other clone? Abby. Like they haven't really bounced in between their experiences. I think they just have been kind of like the same. So let's hope they get a little bit more of kind of like emotional impact and emotional feedback now that Wolverine, like the original weapon, is coming back. We'll see what happens. Sometimes all you need is some Wolverine to bring a little spark into kind of like a warm book with Generation X23. Next. This one was kind of like a shock. I didn't know they were doing another #1 with Miles Morales. Something that I really don't understand with Miles in general is why do they keep fucking up with his suit? It feels like in the space of like, what, 5 years or something, they keep bouncing him between a new suit and the old one, a new suit and the old one, a new suit and the old one. And I'm like, what's going on, man? The past stories about Miles, they've been okay. They mostly use them to craft this really big nemesis in this lady, this girl. Like, she was she had the ability to control technology, so they created a good nemesis relationship with her. But at the same time, they really did a disservice to the whole ultimate incursion era and that story. The story was kind of weak, and now he's coming back. And this new number one, I just said it a couple of, whoa, running out of voice out of the sudden. I just said it that number ones are the perfect jumping points and the perfect opportunities for doing new things. And ever since Miles' own clone saga, he's really had been kind of like a secondary character. So I'm hoping this new number one is an opportunity to dive more into a Miles oriented, Miles impact story. You know, the description puts a story related to Miles' father coming to quote unquote haunt him in this volume. And you know, I've said it before and I would say it again. Family dynamics are, I was gonna say, like the best thing ever. They might be, but anyways, the one way of bringing a lot of impact to a story is to bring it so close. And Miles, being a Latino, is a family oriented character, and we haven't seen that in a long time. Because the whole Ultimate Incursion, where he went to the Ultimate Universe to save his baby sister, wasn't that really impactful. She was just there. So, a new beginning, quote unquote beginning for Miles Morales, a new storyline centered around his family and his father's past. Hopefully, it will be more impactful. Hopefully, it would finally make it. No, they won't change his suit. I was gonna say finally change his suit. Why do they keep doing that, man? Please somebody explain that to me. Because, for example, you have so many other characters who slightly change their suits, but they have a little bit more of life before changing back again. I think one of the best examples in the last couple of years has been Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel has had some badass suits, and they always have a good long shelf life before they change them. But Miles, what happened to the one where he had like a big collar? He looked like Dracula and shit. I don't know, man. But as I said, number ones are the best opportunities to do new things. Miles Morales Spider-Man, number one. Next. This one was kind of like a surprise. I like I was immediately drawn to the cover because it's mostly blood. But apparently this is a story related or Dracula related, but basically focused on this villager who is put into a mission to kill the Viceroy of Transylvania. It's like, I don't know, man. It's kind of like you know, when you have big old stories and you wonder how can you make something new about it, and you think about an outlier, like a guy who wasn't in the main story. Like, okay, this was the I don't know, the secretary of Dracula, or I don't know, the guy in charge of the finances of Frankenstein. I don't know. Those are really stupid examples, but you get my point. It's just taking an old story and see it from a different side, or taking an unknown character and putting him or her in that position. I know Neil Gaiman is not a good guy to quote nowadays. Probably won't be for a long time. But I always remember in Neil Gaiman's masterclass when he goes, if you want to practice creativity as a writer, take an existing story and change it slightly. Choose a different point of view, choose a different protagonist, choose tell it from a different point of view. And he talks about how good fantasy and good fiction has so many angles to be explored. And one of those fantasy settings that we've been exploring for decades is the whole story of Dracula as the main storyline of vampires. We have so many vampire stories, but we always come back to the big baddie, there be Nosferatu or Dracula. And this is one of those examples. Regicide by Patrick Kindlon. Kindlon? One of the recent books he did that I quite enjoy was Tigris Island. This was this kind of like exploitative. I think that is what it's called. This exploitative story of a bunch of models and women being abducted to an island where they were forced to. What were they forced to? I don't know. It was weird because they brought them to this island, and it was implied that they were gonna make them do stuff, but they were never really explicit about it. And the book immediately turned into this this prison escape sort of story, and it went really fast. But I liked it because of that, because it was like fast. Turned into this adventure book where they were escaping this island where all of these girls were prisoners, slightly talking about their backgrounds. It was an interesting story, but that also had that kind of vibe of taking an unknown trope and just slightly changing it. And I said a lot of that just because I like the cover for Regicide. But anyways, it might be fun. Regicide, Image Comics. Next. There's a little bit of could it be an update? I don't know. As I said last week, the Queen in Black event is gonna be unfolding at Marvel, and I just gotta mention the main guy, Venom, because now at this moment we know that Mary Jane is Venom. She has the Venom symbiote, but apparently in this tie-in for the Queen in Black event, we're going back to Dylan and whatever vision he had about the future when he was interacting with Eddie Brock's godlike form. I don't know. I think Dylan has been a weird character in a sense that I don't think he has that much impact or input on his own. I think Dylan's strength was as opposed to Eddie Brock. He hasn't really come through as a full-blown character on his own, even when he was Venom. They keep just bouncing him as this jaded, insecure kid, like, oh man, my childhood sucks and everything. He just keep bringing him back to that. So if we're gonna have a chance to move this character forward, might as well be as part of the event. Though how is that gonna be related to the fact that MJ is the current host for the Venom symbiote? I don't know. I always liked the Dylan's Venom design with the whole chains on his arm and shit. So I'm looking at the cover, and I really like that. But the redesign for MJ's Venom has been even better. So let's see what happens. Just a quick reminder. If you want to be up to date on all things Venom, the symbiote as a character, not as the world of symbiote or anything, but Venom as a character itself, you better keep an eye on Queen in Black, the event. Next, last but not least, I think X-Men is finally getting into an exciting point with the prelude for DNX, the upcoming X-Men event in X-Men number, what is that, 35? We finally have the big reveal, or like the big setup for the next event, which is gonna be Evil Beast, who came back from the future, right? What is the mix? Like, this is comic book shit. So, in the present timeline, we already had two Beasts or Hank McCoys. We had the old one, the OG one, who became this Machiavellian, evil, crazy guy who led X Factor into these really morally ambiguous and kind of like really not good sort of type of missions. He was alive During the Krakoa era, a clone of a clean Hank McCoy was there. So the good Hank McCoy we have in the present is actually not the OG, but a clone that sort of stopped in time before he went bad. But then we had the one who came from the future, which I think was the bad one. And so he came from the future with knowledge of the future back to the present to do some bad shit. Right? So in a way we have 3 beasts? I don't know. But whatever it is the setup for the upcoming storyline for the X-Men. And I don't know, I'm kind of like really not really excited, because I'm more excited always by Uncanny X-Men. But here's the thing. You always have to bring the X-Men together. You know, X-Men United, or like how they did in the animated show, which is ending today, right? The second season is ending today. Like X-Men always back X-Men up. And during the Hellfire Murder short story, or like one shot, they always keep saying like, yeah, okay. Like whenever Rogue and Scott kind of like interact, they go like, yeah, man, we are in different paths, but when you need me, I'll be there, because X-Men United. Oh, fuck yeah. So what I mean by that is that when you have the seeds for an X-Men event, it's always exciting because nothing is off the table. You can see how among the ongoing X-Men books, how they sort of, I think they have this board, right? This shuffleboard at Marvel, and they have the different mutants, and they know the mutants have different tiers to them. You know, it's like a Cyclops is not the same as a what could I don't want to insult anyone. A chamber, you know, Cyclops is not the same as a chamber, or like a Sunspot is not the same as a Multiple Man, you know, or like Juggernaut is not the same as a Strong Man. What was the name of the Italian guy? Strong Boy, Buff Boy. But anyways, you have the board of X-Men. You know, they all have different tiers, so you need to spread them out evenly. Having some important ones in this book, having some important one in this book, you can keep all of your eggs in one basket, right? The current separation of X-Men is great. It has a great balance, even though I like Uncanny X-Men better, mostly because of Rogue, and she's my favorite X-Men. But the balance is right. The only way of breaking that balance is when you do something really impactful. And I think Beast, and Evil Beast being the one behind the current major threat for mutantdom in Marvel, is the perfect storm, no pun intended, to bring them all back together. So this shit is exciting, man. Like, I don't know. I said it's exciting, and it's like, it feels like, you know, you say that every week because it's true. The prelude to the next start in this week's issue of X-Men. The Beast coming to his beastdom. I don't know. But that's another week of good old ass comic books. Still lots to read, lots to experience, so many events as always, good stories, good emotions, good bleeding hearts, emotion, like great art in the Chris Samneys, curiosity stuffs in the Star Wars thing, you know, fresh takes in the whole Image Dracula book. You know, there's always stuff, you know, some exciting and kind of like perverted thing in this week's book of the weeks, Margaret Bennett Gastronomique. Even the name is good to say. It's always good shit to look forward to. So I hope you find yours. That's it for me this week. Keep reading. I keep trying like one-liners, but I suck at it. So just keep reading, and see you all next week with more comic books. Bye bye.